In our culture, you turn 21, you have a big blowout birthday, and congratulations, you're an adult. And that's kind of where our culture leaves us. They leave us thinking that at age 21, that's kind of the end of development. You've fully matured. However, at 21, that's actually the beginning. It is the beginning of a whole journey ahead of us. However, our culture has not yet updated its model so that there are 40, 50, 60-year-old men and women who are still in a developmental stage of maybe 20 or 30. Our culture hasn't really defined these different maps of development, but they have been there. There have been many different researchers in the field of psychological development in our Western culture, as well as these different stages of development have been mapped by multiple other cultures in the East for thousands and thousands of years. So at age 21 is really just the very beginning of a whole journey of psycho-spiritual development. And in this video, I'm going to share with you one of my favorite maps by Terry O'Fallon. And I'm going to go into these different stages so that you can really get an understanding of where you are on the map. So just as we as a species began to understand that there were different seasons, that allowed us to have a whole agricultural revolution. Knowing where we are in time is incredibly helpful. So in this video, I'm going to give a brief outlay of Terry O'Fallon's model and these different stages of development so that you can get a gauge of where you are now and essentially where you're going and where you get to grow into. And as I share this, one of the things that I want to note is that the developmental journey in all of these developmental maps is spiral in nature. So we have a tendency to think in a linear fashion, but these different stages of development are spiral. So often we are branching into a new one while simultaneously still maybe doing some refinement on a previous stage. And all of those stages are coexisting at the same time. So here is Terry O'Fallon's map. And as you can see, we have these numbers on the side from 1 to 6.5, from here to here. And we have these 3 core stages that we are going to get to grow through as human beings. And this gets really, really interesting. And it's very helpful for any of us on our growth journey to understand that these different stages are at play. And it can highlight some potential blind spots that we have so we can go back and strengthen certain areas as we continue to wake up and grow up. So as you can see here, we have 3 key stages. We have pre-personal, personal, and post-personal. We're going to begin with pre-personal. So this, for you, is your early development. So ages 0 to 7, your pre-personal stages. So as you were growing up, essentially your nervous system was getting a gauge on essentially how safe your environment was. So in this stage, what we're predominantly working with in terms of like our felt sense of experience is safety and trust. So safety and trust is the foundation upon which everything else is built. So if there were relationships in our life where there wasn't safety and trust, if there were experiences that we were going through that challenged our safety and trust in ourselves, maybe in mom and dad, in the world, then our nervous system might have some experiences here that we get to go back and work on to deepen that sense of safety and trust. So in your own growth work, any parts work you're doing, any IFS, any tool or therapy or coaching that supports you in going back to those early stages and reintegrating those in a new way, that's pre-personal work. Now, the pre-personal work leads us into our personal development. Our personal development is the stage of development where we get to go out into the world. We get to individuate. We go out into the world with a sense of purpose and understand our belonging and our place in our family, culture, communities. In this stage, we really get to discover who it is that we are and what it is that we want to contribute in this world. So if you can imagine going through your late teen years, early 20s, potentially even early 30s, this is you really getting a sense of who you are and what you're going to contribute to the world. Once that stage has been completed to a high enough degree, we move from the personal and we begin moving into the post-personal or transpersonal. This happens at stage 5.0 here. And this is when we become construct aware. Now, this is a major leap in our development. And this is where we become aware that ourselves and reality itself is a construct, meaning that it's made up. The whole thing is open to interpretation. And here we begin to be able to take on multiple perspectives, often paradoxical, at the same time as a predominant default mode of operation, meaning that we're living here most of the time. Now, there will be, as we're living here most of the time, we'll still be integrating the fact that there's a personal self and a pre-personal self, meaning that as we sit here right now, my whole self-construct, my whole identity is still in a relationship with the past, meaning like the experiences that I went through as a child. They're informing the present moment of my personal self as I begin to stretch into the post-personal, the transpersonal, the we space. And as we begin to move into this 5.0 construct-aware tier, it's really, really, really helpful for our development because we begin to be able to see and we begin to be able to loosen our grip on a solid identity structure, which we might have spent the past decade or two building. And we begin to loosen the identity construct here and begin to see that certain models in society are actually just models. They've just been created by other human beings and that they can be recreated. We start to see on a personal level that our belief systems are also being created because we are becoming construct aware. We're beginning to see the fact that these belief structures are just patterns that have been passed down through a series of transgenerational experience or transgenerational trauma and all the good stuff too, that those patterns have been passed down and that they're constructed, meaning that they can be reconstructed. So we really gain an ability here to be able to take on multi-perspectives, and we begin to be able to hold paradoxical ideas at the same time, meaning that as we go here, we don't lose the ability to be able to deeply relate to our pre-personal selves as we begin to expand or open our identity to a larger collective, to the we that we all are. As we do this, we gain a broader view which can hold paradox. So, there's a beautiful quote which I really love, which is, my view is as vast as the cosmos, and my care for suffering is as fine as a grain of flour. So my view is as vast as the cosmos, and my care for suffering is fine as a grain of flour. And in that poetry, which is really what the transpersonal begins to move into, it's poetic. In that we can see that he has the ability, or he's pointing at there, this construct transpersonal meta-aware tier, which is both aware of the whole cosmos, but at the same time deeply in touch with that pre-personal, with the suffering in our own lives and that in the lives of our fellow brothers and sisters. Yeah, so as you're looking at these, you might start to notice that you have things that are alive in all three stages. In the pre-personal, you might be recognizing, oh yeah, there might be some IFS or some inner child work to do around some of my early experiences. You might also recognize that there might be some work to do around kind of, purpose and relationship and autonomy. Or there might be some work to do around, or it might be a new area for you in terms of this meta-aware transpersonal tier, of which where, breath work, medicine work, meditation can begin to have us begin to explore and expand into the transpersonal. That might be an area you're familiar with, or it might be an area that you're newly getting into. Now, what's really helpful is that when we integrate all of these pieces together, it creates an integral model. It creates an integrated model, meaning that, it's actually really helpful as we're doing our healing and transformation work to have access to all three of these different stages and states of consciousness, because this post-personal tier allows us to take a really broad perspective. We begin to be able to see things from different angles and different perspectives, which is really helpful. But at the same time, we're not getting lost just in spiritual experiences or transpersonal experiences, we're also bringing that back down and relating it to our prepersonal selves in a compassionate and caring way, which is then informing our current selves in the now moment, which would be our personal selves. And all of these three things are coexisting in relationship. So you can use this map to just give you a gauge on where there might be areas of growth and development for you. And you can come back in 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years later, and you'll be able to say, oh yes, now I understand more of this tier. Interesting. And you can continue to use it as a map, because that's what it is. It supports us in our continued evolution and growth. So as you can see, there is a lot more development to come after 21, which of course you already knew. But in knowing this and supporting our friends, family, communities, we can begin to see that actually there's a huge map, there's a huge amount of growth here. Honestly, when our society is moving into this 5.0 tier, when we start to become aware of our interconnection and deeper levels of compassion and kindness start to come online, when we can start to see things, seeing what's happening out there on the world stage with political parties, when there's a huge swath of us operating from a multi-tier perspective, being able to take on the other person's view and really begin to see it, the whole world is really going to begin to change. So thank you for all the beautiful work you're doing, and I'll see you back here next week.